sale of property, plant, and equipment. So we have now your intercompany sale of property, plant, and equipment. For our objectives in this module, first, to prepare elimination entries which are related to intercompany transactions related to property, plant, and equipment of affiliated companies. Then we have to compute for consolidated retained earnings and profit or loss attributable to owners of parent and non-controlling interest, and also to prepare consolidated statements. So just like in uh, the previous chapters. So we have now your intercompany sales of property, plant, and equipment identified as either downstream or upstream because only upstream sales affect non-controlling interest, just like your intercompany sale of inventories. Now for the accounting procedures, any gain or loss is deferred and amortized over the asset's remaining life if the asset is depreciable, and recognized only when the asset is sold to an unrelated party or otherwise derecognized if the asset is non-depreciable. So take note that it's recognized. What is meant here is any gain or loss is recognized only when the asset is sold to an unrelated party or third party, or it's also recognized if the asset is non-depreciable. B, if the asset is subsequently sold to unrelated party, the unamortized balance of the deferred gain or loss is recognized in profit or loss. C, in a downstream sale, the gain or loss is adjusted to the controlling interest only. Therefore, non-controlling interest is not affected. Just like your intercompany sales of inventory. D, in an upstream sale, the adjustment to gain or loss are shared between the controlling interest and the non-controlling interest. Therefore, the NCI is affected. E, in any case, the unamortized balance of the deferred gain or loss is eliminated when the consolidated financial statements are prepared. So again, we are referring to the unamortized balance of the deferred gain or loss, which is to be eliminated. So we now go to the illustration for consolidation of the intercompany property, plant, and equipment transaction. January 1, 20X1, ABC Company acquired 80% interest in XYZ. The business combination resulted to goodwill of 3,000. On this date, XYZ's equity comprised of 50,000 share capital and 24,000 retained earnings. NCI was measured at its proportionate share in XYZ's net identifiable assets. So we have now the assets and liabilities on January 1, 20X1. Approximately their fair values in relation to the carrying amounts. So, except for the following. So we have, in other words, the rest of the assets, the carrying amounts are approximately the same as the fair values. So for the inventory, we have the carrying amount is lower by 8,000 as compared to the fair value. And the equipment with the 4-year remaining life, the fair value is again higher than the carrying amount, and the accumulated depreciation based on the cost, and the other one is based on the fair value. So in other words, an increase of 2,000 in accumulated depreciation as we compare that based on the carrying amount and on the fair value. January 1, 20X1, ABC Company sells equipment with a historical cost of 10,000 and accumulated depreciation of 2,000. Okay? Uh, of 2002, XYZ Incorporated for 12,000 on cash basis. The equipment has a remaining useful life of 4 years. So in other words, ABC now is selling equipment to XYZ. Historical cost and accumulated depreciation are to 10,000 and 2,000 respectively. And the selling price is 12,000. Okay. The year-end individual financial statements are shown below as of December 31, 20X1 for ABC and for XYZ. For ABC, we have cash, accounts receivable, inventory, then investment at cost, equipment, and the accumulated depreciation. In the books of XYZ, again, cash, accounts receivable, and we have now the inventory and 15,000. The investment in subsidiary at cost, 75,000. And the equipment of XYZ, now stated at 62,000 with the accumulated depreciation equal to 23,000. Now that is on December 31, 20X1. We are now giving the assets and as well as down. We have the liabilities and equity of the parent and the subsidiary. So we have the accounts payable, bonds payable, share capital for A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. Then the share premium, retained earnings of XYZ is at the amount of 41,000. Now, for the total of the liabilities and capital. Okay? Now, take note that the equipment in the books of XYZ, initially as given, the equipment of XYZ amounted to here, the fair value of 60 but the carrying amount of 50. XYZ na. And XYZ now, the amount of the equipment in the books as given is already 62,000. Take note that we have intercompany sales of property, plant, and equipment. Now, as we go to the statement of profit or loss for ABC and XYZ for their individual operations. So we now have the XYZ's depreciation expense for a total of 13,000 and for the distribution cost of 18,000. So the total profit for the year of XYZ is 17,000. Prepare the December 31, 20X1 consolidated financial statements. So we have now the solutions using the 7 steps, no? By the way, you may use the steps, you may not. You might have your own process. But anyway, as long as you arrive at the same figures. Now, in step 1, we have the analysis of the effects of the intercompany transactions. The intercompany sale is downstream because the seller is the parent. If you can recall, in downstream under inventory, parent and subsidiary. So it's the parent selling to the subsidiary. The same with this. Now, in step one, and let us analyze the effects of the intercompany sale, having in mind the concept that it is as if the intercompany sale never occurred. Now, because of the sale, ABC company recognized gain on sale of 4,000. The cost of the asset sold is 12,000. The selling price, I mean, is 12,000, and the cost was 10,000 minus the accumulated depreciation. So in other words, if there was a sale, ABC recognized a gain of 4,000. So again, 12,000 minus 8,000. If there was no sale, no gain should have been recognized. The effect on combined financial statements before adjustments, the profit is overstated by 4,000. That is in the books of the parent. Now in B, the equipment's new cost is 12,000, the purchase price. So the historical cost, if there was no sale, is still 10,000. So the equipment's cost is overstated by 2,000. 2,000 to the effect that the original cost was 10, now it makes 12,000 as recorded by XYZ. So there's an increase of 2,000, the difference between 12,000 and 10,000. Now, in letter C, the equipment's accumulated depreciation on January 1, 20X1 is zero because it has been derecognized. The accumulated depreciation. The equipment's accumulated depreciation on January 1 is 2,000. The fact that you have the sale affecting the cost of 10,000 and the accumulated depreciation related to is 2,000. In the effect on the combined financial statements before adjustments, the accumulated depreciation on January 1, 20X1 is understated by 2,000. The fact that XYZ company now will only record the equipment at 12,000, and ABC will de-recognize the accumulated depreciation in its entry if you are going to sell the fixed asset. Of course, you have to debit the given accumulated depreciation. Now, in letter D, because of the sale, XYZ recognized depreciation of 3,000. Recognized depreciation of 3,000 in 20X1, the 12,000 being the purchase price of XYZ divided by 4, the remaining life of the asset. If there was no sale, ABC should have recognized depreciation of 2,000 in 20X1 because the carrying amount of the equipment sold to XYZ was only 8,000. That's 10,000 minus 2,000. So the remaining book value of 4,000 divided by 4, then it's only for 2,000. So the accumulated depreciation on December 31, 20X1 is understated by 1,000. The fact that the seller, ABC company, did not record accumulated depreciation anymore, but it was only the buyer recording the accumulated depreciation in the amount of 3,000. Dividing 12,000 by 4, that's 3,000. It could have been 4,000 in the books of ABC, because the equipment's accumulated depreciation should have been 4,000. That's the total of the beginning balance before the sale and the current year's accumulated depreciation. So in step number 1, for our closing journal entry number 1, to eliminate the gain on the intercompany sale, first, on December 31, 20X1, we debit gain on sale of equipment. The amount of the gain recorded by ABC, credit to equipment for 2,000, and credit accumulated depreciation by 2,000. Now, the gain is the amount of the gain recognized by ABC upon sale to XYZ. And as we have computed, the gain is 12,000 minus 8,000. Now, closing journal entry number 2, to eliminate the overstatement in depreciation, we now debit to accumulated depreciation and to credit back depreciation expense, because this time, XYZ company, when it bought the equipment, it debited to depreciation expense by 3,000, and not the 2,000 that should have been recorded by ABC. So the credit to depreciation expense in the amount of 1,000 will reduce the depreciation expense by 1,000. So it will be back to the supposed to be depreciation recorded in the books of ABC. As stated earlier, the gain or loss on an intercompany sale of depreciable asset is initially deferred and subsequently amortized over the remaining life of the asset. The amortization is done by eliminating only the unamortized balance of the deferred gain as of the consolidation date. The amortized portion remains. The unamortized balance of the deferred gain is 4,000. That was the gain on sale on January 1, 20X1. And then we multiply it by 3 years remaining as of December 31, 20X1 over 4 years. So the deferred gain is still 3,000. Or you can simply determine the amortized gain equal to 4,000 times 1/4, or 1 year over 4 years. So that when we talk about amortized, it's the difference between the total gain minus the unamortized portion. So the difference of 1,000 is the amortized portion. Or you can simply multiply the original amount of the gain of 4,000 by 1 year over 4 years. That's the amortization period, which is actually the remaining life of the equipment, which is still 4 years. So deferred, meaning the deferred amount is the unrealized or the unamortized. Take note that we already debited and closed the gain account. Notice from analysis A and B and D above that the net effect of the transaction is an overstatement in profit for 3,000. 4,000 overstatement because of the gain, which was originally credited to profit and loss, minus 1,000, the understatement, so equal to the unamortized balance of the deferred gain. Only this amount should have been eliminated. That's why the net effect of the closing journal entry number 1 and number 2 is a decrease in profit for 3,000. Okay, so that will be debit to gain 4,000, credit to depreciation expense in the amount of 1,000. The 1,000 amortized portion remains in the accounts. So that's the amount that will be finally closed to profit and loss. By year end, the gain would have been close to the seller's retained earnings. Therefore, ABC's retained earnings shall be adjusted for the unamortized balance of the deferred gain. Thus, we debit to retained earnings of ABC Company by 3,000 and credit to income summary. Why did we debit retained earnings? The fact that the gain on sale was already closed as a credit to retained earnings. So, as an adjustment, we debit back retained earnings because the correct profit arising from the sale after elimination is only 1,000. So that's for step number 1. Now we get step number 2, analysis of net assets. In the books of XYZ, we have the share capital of 50,000 as of the consolidation date, and then the retained earnings of 24,000 on January 1, 20X1, and now it's 41,000 after adding the profit for the year. Then, for the totals at carrying amounts, we now get 74,000 and 91,000. The fair value adjustments at acquisition date for 16,000. And we have now your subsidiary net assets at fair value. We are adding 16,000 because the fair value is higher than the carrying cost. Now, as of the consolidation date, we are now adding 16,000 for the excess of the fair value over the carrying amount, and we are deducting the amount of 10,000. So 8,000 depreciation of the fair value assets on inventory plus 2,000. That's 10,000 minus 2,000 divided by 4 years of the fair value adjustment on equipment. So we are adding 8,000 and 2,000, giving us the total of 10,000, which we are going to deduct for from during the consolidation date. Notice that the intercompany sales does not affect XYZ's equity and consequently NCI because the sale is downstream. Okay, in step number 3, we have to determine goodwill. The problem states that goodwill on acquisition was 3,000. This is also the amount at year end because there is no impairment of goodwill during the year. So we have now for closing journal entry number 4,